I'd like to introduce the panel. We have Franey Irani, Jack Small, Shireen Bonner, and Jim Meyer. Okay, the quote that our Sahavas theme this year in its complete form was, "I want each of you to come with longing to my Sahavas. I want this Sahavas to be above all, a close companionship between your beloved and his lovers. Come with the preparedness to receive fully whatever I may give you. Be ready to step into the intimacy of Sahavas. There you will find the treasure complete. He who approaches me with a full heart of love has my Sahavas." Okay. Do any of you have any thing you'd like to impart as a closing as we go home that you haven't said before or thought you wish you'd said, or you're all happy? Franey.
Yeah. No, well, I'm happy, yes, but I don't know. What do you want me to say?
I just wanted, if any of you had a take-home message that you wanted to give or something that you wish you'd said, it might be your last opportunity.
Looking at Baba here, who is giving me a wonderful smile, that all of you have really been, wonderful to us, and you have shown us love, and Baba wants you to love him and keep loving him, even in hardship, in any difficulties. Because I can tell you from experience, he's always behind you if you call out to him. Hold on to his Dhamman. Whatever the calamity or difficulty, just hold on. I can't stress that more than anything. And he's with you. He's told me that, and I can vouch for it. So I leave that message and my love to you all as well.
Shireen?
Just when you were reading that message, I just was thinking that Baba talked about coming with a full heart, and I really feel that Baba gives us so much, and if we take one step to him, he takes the rest of the steps to us. I mean, it's just that one step of really trying hard to give everything to him. Then he fills the void. That's it.
Jack, anything?
The Sahavas is not over today. This is not the end of the Sahavas. The Sahavas that Baba has given us this weekend, and from the very moment we first heard his name and experienced his love, the Sahavas will continue. We will continue to experience his Sahavas if we want it. That's very simple. What do you want? Do you want my Sahavas or you want yourself? It's a simple choice. Who do we want? Do we want Baba or do we want ourselves? Meyer, quoting Baba, said that there's just so much space within oneself. The less of Baba, the more of us. The more of us, the less of Baba. So it's a simple choice we make. We don't have to take the Sahavas with us. We can have it end at noon. Or the Sahavas can continue. We can continue to receive his love in our hearts. It'll be continuous Sahavas. Our entire life will be a Sahavas with Baba. It'll increase. And it increases when shared with others. When we share his love with others, we feel his love. And so this is not the end of the Sahavas. This is the beginning of the Sahavas. Each moment is a Sahavas if we do our best to remember him and think of him more than we think of ourselves.
Jim, do you have anything?
Well, trusting in my intuition while you were reading that quote, I was thinking about what a very dear friend of mine once told me. Some of you might have met Laura Delevingne. She's passed away, but she was a Sufi who was initiated by Inayat Khan in the early 20s. And when she came to MeherBaba to meet him for the first time in 1952, she met him in the barn, and she came up to Baba. And she had been going through a lot of turmoil in her life, a lot of changes, as we all are apt to be doing with Baba. And she came in front of Baba and she said, "Oh, Baba, I feel like I've come to the end of everything." And Baba looked at her and said, "The end of everything is the beginning." So I'd share that with you.
Okay. Breaking down the quote, the first part of it, I want each of you to come with the longing to receive my Sahavas. I want this Sahavas to be, above all, a close companionship between your beloved and his lovers. And I wanted to ask all of you, can you best describe how you keep your close companionship with Baba when you go through your life and we all go home to our various places and duties?
Well, for my example, it took me a while, but I sort of plodded on. I always now think of him every minute of the day. Sometimes a minute goes by, but
Thank you, Franny. I don't feel so bad. I would say,
yeah,
2 minutes goes by with me.
A minute goes by, but I know he knows that we slip up sometimes, but that's human nature, and I'm not perfect. But I just bear in mind and think of him, and just remember his last words to me. Just think of me, and he's present.
Isn't daughter next?
Oh, I went down the line, I guess it's organized.
It's a matter of priorities. What's number one in our life? I remember Lynn McGuire told me something I'll never forget. After her first trip to India, she said that before she came to India, she always loved Baba, and Baba was always there, but in the corner of her life. And she would relate to Baba when the mood was there, when the circumstances, when she felt inspired to relate to him. After her first trip to India, Baba was in the center of her life. And everything she did was dependent upon that relationship with Baba. Just as Shireen checked with Meher and Mani and Baba through Meher and Mani in every aspect of our life, we have that same connection with Meher Baba in our hearts. If we take him as number one, what's number one? What's the most important thing? We can check with him in every single event of our life, just as she has. Her experience with Baba and Meher and Mani, we can participate in that same experience as directly in our heart. It's actually quicker. She had to wait for telegrams or letters. We get instant communication to Baba in our heart, just like Lynn said. If Baba's in the center of our life, we can check with him for everything constantly, if we make that effort. He's just there. All we have to do is turn to him for every single thing. Everything in the most practical, mundane part of our lives. This is his work for us, is our lives, our jobs, our families. This is Baba's work for us. If we make the effort, that's all we have to do. Make a little extra effort. Let's get this something out of the Sahavas. Let's give Baba 10% more if we can't give him 100% more. Let's try to remember him even 10% more. And the more we remember him, the more he'll remember us.
Thank you. Shireen?
I don't think I can really say it any better than Jack. It pretty much sums it up. I go on to say that using the opportunity to pray to Baba. I know there are some people who don't really. I know people who don't really like saying the prayers. I think it's too ritualistic. But I really consider the prayers a great opportunity to connect with Baba. And one should do it with the feeling. It shouldn't just be a ritual and by rote. But I really think that once you start saying the Pravadigar prayer, it's impossible to finish it and not have felt something, and to have felt some contact with Baba. And it's a way of expressing your concerns to him. And also, I just think, it's just to state again, to really try very hard to, sometimes when you're faced with the most impossible decisions and you're waiting for a sign, it's happened to me time and again, I'm waiting for Baba, and nothing happens. And at that point, I just try to wholeheartedly give it to him and do my best and then not worry. I mean, it's very hard to do, but I think there comes a point where, you just have to give it to him. It's not in my power. So.
And Jim?
Well, recently, about a year ago anyway, I read a wonderful quote from Baba where he said, when you wake up in the morning, first thing you should think about is to say, I now begin by entrusting all to you. And when you go to bed at night, just before you go to sleep, say, Beloved Baba, I entrust all that I've thought, spoken, and done, good and bad, to you. So that's been very important to me. I love that word entrust. And I love the words good and bad. My understanding of Baba, which is extremely limited, and it seems to get more limited as I get older. Part of a romance is a hide and seek, whether it be physically or emotionally or whatever. And my experience with Baba is that when he's hiding, that's sometimes the most significant part of the romance. When you feel like you're waiting for an answer and no answer comes, that in itself is the answer, because it forces you to break free of old approaches, old views. And I'm very thankful to Baba for, I'm angry at Baba and I'm happy at Baba, but I'm very grateful that he has created this romance. And he makes the rules up as he goes along. Because if it was up to me to make the rules, there'd be no charm in it. And I appreciate the charm.
Okay, the next part is come with the preparedness to receive fully whatever I may give you. And I think a lot of us, I can speak for, you go out in the world and you do your job and this, and it seems like Baba he's there, but he's not on the front seat. And how do you prepare for Baba, or how do you re-prepare that you can receive him better or reprioritize your minute-to-minute or daily focus? Franey, I think.
Yeah, well, it's a hard question. There's no preparation for me. I've reached to the point now that I see him everywhere. And I do see him everywhere.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So I don't see him in vision, but I see him, And he knows it.
I think that's a great standard to go for. Jack.
I find the problem with me is I separate Meher Baba, the Samadhi, his photo, from my life. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to include my selfishness. That belongs to him too. My pain, my anger, my frustration, my lust, everything is his. Instead of, I remember this one experience I had years ago when I first came to Baba. I could just imagine him in his pure white, glowing sadhva, so pure, and he's opening up his arms to see me. This was not a vision, this was just a feeling. And he's opening up his arms, and I can't go to him. I'm all black and I'm dirty, and I'm aware of all my faults. And he's opening his arms, and I just, in spite of myself, I just run to him. And all my blackness and dirt dissolves in him. You see, we keep ourselves, our faults, separate from Baba. Everything belongs to him. Once you give yourself to Baba, everything. And not to separate, well, this is Baba, and these are my desires, this is my anger, my frustrations. Everything's his. Once you're his, you're his. You belong to him. And once that's established, we have to establish that. And that's not easy. But once that's done, once the firm foundation of giving yourself to Baba and everything belongs to Baba, then everything, whatever comes after that, is from Baba. If you get angry, upset, hurt somebody, hurt yourself, that's Baba's doing. You try your best, but take that as coming from Baba, instead of saying, well, no, that doesn't belong to Baba, that belongs to me. That's the problem. Everything belongs to Baba, our faults, our lust, our anger, our careers, our life, our children, and then we have to do our best. Adi used to say that he would take, I need an example. He would take his shawl and he would say, you give your life to Baba, right? And then Baba says, okay, I accept your life. And then he gives it back to you. Thank you. And then you live your life not for yourself, but for him. So what's key, the key ingredient is to make that transference. Your life, everything is his. Your career, everything, it belongs to him. Then he says, now you live your life not for yourself, but for me. And once that is done, then everything follows from that. So the key is to making that initial step of giving everything to him. Then everything follows from that. It all belongs to him. And whether you forget to remember him or not, that also belongs to him. One time this woman, when we came here in 1977, said to Adi, you know, I'm really upset, Adi. And she said, why? He said, I can't remember Baba enough. And Adi asked her, well, how often do you feel that way? She said, constantly. That's wonderful, you know? The thing is to incorporate our weaknesses as coming from Baba. Once we've given Baba our weaknesses, hey, Baba, these are your weaknesses. If I can't remember you, that's your fault. I'm doing my best. You're doing your best in me.
Thanks, Jack. And Shireen?
I just can't follow you. Don't you just say everything so well?
I'll let you go first next time.
You don't think this accidental, I bet you sit
I know. Well, I sort of have to echo what my mum said insofar as, because I do really try to have Baba be the focus of my daily life. But of course, I slip. I mean, that happens. And then in terms of getting him back again, or me going back just mentally, just simple things. Like if I do have a moment where I really feel I'm just not feeling Baba very much, I'll pick up one of the few books I can read, and read Margaret's stories or Kitty's, just beautiful stories about Baba. For me, of course, also I remember my times with him. Also, I was mentioning, how we all love Baba, in our own different ways, and show that. And I find it a great solace to have Baba's photo everywhere. That's just what our house is like. His photo is everywhere, so it's pretty hard to forget him when he is all over the place.
When he's your uncle.
Well, yeah, but when he's right there. And then one time, and then echoing what you said, and I won't say it as well. Money, when I was very ill, and in 1989, and I had a serious operation coming up, and again, it's one of these life or death things that we seem to be encountering. The operation was such that I could have died on the operating table, and so nobody knew what the outcome was going to be until I had the operation and woke up, basically. And we were getting messages from India. Money was phoning, so doing all this. And Bao was visiting London at the time, just after my operation, when I was still very ill, but I was out of danger. And he said, Money had a message for me, and said, what? She said, why are you worrying so much? She said, you know that Baba is going to perform every second of that surgery. She said, why are you worrying? And it just, really struck me. I thought, when somebody says to you, you might die, you do tend to worry a little bit. But it just brought it home so clearly that we just have to remember that he is, we're so fortunate, and we give ourselves over to him. And she was saying that she was convinced I wasn't going to die. But the fact is, whether I died or not, it was in Baba's hands, and I was in Baba's hands.
Jim?
I think one of the problems we all have is that we don't see the Baba within ourselves. We tend to feel that we're most unworthy while we see all these other people loving Baba so much. And I know that's my personal experience. I'm always moved when I go to a Sahavas or I'm around the center, seeing how much love everybody has for Baba, and sort of comparing myself to everybody else. There's an old expression, compare and despair. You 12-steppers know what that is. But I think that's part of the game, you know. I think that's all. I mean, I'm absolutely convinced that everybody is doing it just right. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're exactly remembering Baba as he should be remembered in your lives. That there's a certain mystery involved, and that's part of the charm, and the mystery is not showing you too much. Because if you see too much, you're going to go wacky. You're going to start wearing robes and preaching down at people and stuff. I mean, everybody has this very special, unique, we're all like snowflakes. We're all God. We're all unique. He loves us all because we are Him. And we have to go through these states of doubt and despair so that we can have that contrast when He finally reveals another aspect of Himself in us. And that's good for me to remember, because I know what despair is, and you all know what despair is. I went through a period in which I felt that Meher Baba had abandoned me. And I dare say that many of you have experienced this as well. And I say that because you are like me, you know? And I got this letter from Mani. She called me an idiot, you know, which was wonderful. She said, "You idiot, what's this I hear about you feeling that beloved Baba has abandoned you?" She said, "You are His, and being His, and having Him give you His love, that's eternal. There's no such thing." But from my point of view, the setup was so beautiful. To feel abandoned so that you seek Him out more is part of that romance, part of that charm. The tough thing is, when you're in a state of despair like that, to carry on, to see what other people are telling you about it. But we all muddle through, and I think when we all come out the other end of these states, then there's a new dilemma in the romance. I mean, if you read Baoji's poetry, especially if you're in a state of despair, I don't know why I'm talking about despair, because I'm not in despair now, but when you're in that state where nothing seems to make any sense, that life has this total quality of meaning, then if you read Bao's poems like Meher Sarod or Meher Roshani or something like that, you start going, yeah, this is poetry. You see what I'm saying? The charm there is so extraordinary. So I got to India. I said, "Bao, you still feel this way?" He said, "Oh no, I'm you know." He tried to play it down, but in in this state, he transcended that state of despair by talking directly to Baba in him, and to reach that next level. You know, when the poet is berating the beloved, that's not some kind of poetic, what's the word, you know? Yeah, I mean, that's the way it is. It's not a metaphor. No, it's an actuality, you know? And it's part of it's charming, it's romantic. I want to tell you how much I have felt Baba's love from all of you.
Okay, the last part of the quote. Be ready to step into the intimacy of Sahavas. There you will find the treasure complete. He who approaches me with a heart full of love has my Sahavas. And I was wondering if each of you could bring us a moment when you felt most maybe that you had his Sahavas either when he was in body or out. Shireen, I'd like you to go first.
This is perhaps not the moment when I most felt I had his Sahavas, but it's a very poignant, striking moment in my life, and that's when my father died. Because I just really felt something shift, and my father was very important to me, and I mean, there's no question my relationship was with Baba directly, but I also really feel that I benefited, for want of a better word, from my father's, obviously, but from my father's presence in my life and his love and devotion to Baba. I felt taught me a lot. You know, I don't really know how to, but he was. I think because of my father, I came to have a clearer vision of Baba. I mean, my father was a great influence on me. And when he died, on the one hand it was just really terrible, on the other hand it did feel right and appropriate, because it was obvious that he was meant to die, and also it was very obvious from what we were told that he knew he was going to die, and he himself prepared for it the night before. So when I heard all that, I'll just tell you briefly, but he'd been very ill. He had a heart complaint, but he didn't take any allopathic medication for it, and he was in absolute agony. I mean, you've got your heart's just seizing up, and he took nothing. And the night before he died, he did several things that was extremely out of character, including having a complete, I mean, I don't mean he didn't bathe, but he had a complete bath, and shaved off not shaved off, but shaved off most of his beard. He had a long white beard, and he had it trimmed quite close to his face, and he had his hair cut. And he'd been extremely ill. I mean, he'd been bedridden. He hadn't, he had to get up and get into a bath, and he had a barber come to the house and cut his hair. And in addition to this, he asked someone to go to it's a place called the Body Shop that sells herbal and sort of lotions and things, and asked for sandalwood and rose oil. And my father was terribly allergic to any kind of perfume, I mean, so much so that, if I put a drop of anything, I mean, he couldn't stand it. As his life progressed, he became more and more allergic, to disinfectants, and these are really pungent, heavy-duty oils. And he put a little dab on himself, but he basically had the bottles waiting there. So I was completely taken aback. I mean, I just hadn't, it's because the thing with my father was he always went on, no matter what, he just kept going. And I didn't take it as seriously as I should have done that first phone call. And then I got the phone call 20 minutes later. Now, it just so happened that Jay had left our house about 3 minutes before the phone call came with his stepsister who was visiting. And he'd gone to take her to his college in the middle of London, and it was Saturday. I mean, traffic was bad. There was no way I could get hold of him. I don't drive, and Franey, who does drive, had to stay back with Meyer, who was only 2 at the time. So I had to go on my own to face this. And it really seemed that Baba had just arranged this, that it just had to be me going there, to see my father for the last time. And but when I got the phone call from the friend, they said, well, this is really bad. And I didn't understand still, and I said, let me talk to him. And this person said, you don't understand, he's on the ground, he's about to get into an ambulance. So I said, put the phone to him. And there is a point to this story, because I really thought Baba just so the phone was held to him, and I was just, talking to him and, saying, Daddy, Daddy, I love you, hold on. And I found out afterwards that his heart, the monitor was completely flat. And at that point, when I was saying that to him, they got a response, and the ambulance men were actually saying, great, 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 and then it went again. So I like to think, and when I heard that, I really like to think that Baba just gave us that last moment together. And I feel that he heard me. So that, because when I got to the hospital, he had already died. And I was caught in Saturday traffic, and I was on my own, and I didn't know what to do. I couldn't fathom it. Just, not the same as with Baba, but the same thing. My father just could never die. That wasn't going to happen. And as I got into the hospital, into the emergency room, this whole sort of entourage of medical people were about to come to me, and were about to say, "Your father said he's gone to Baba." So those were the first words I heard. And then it developed, and then just, anyway. But that was a time where I felt Baba so strongly, because I really felt Baba knew what had gone from my life, and he just filled that void. And I feel so close to my father now, but I feel close to him through Baba.
Thank you very much. Franey?
There are many moments in my Sahavas, but I think my special moment, the first time, my actual wedding day when I was with him, I felt him. That was my Sahavas day, because he was the sweetest person I've ever had in my life. And with his love, with his courage and strength, I went into life, to a challenging life, in the world. And I was pretty young, naive, didn't know like the young ones know today. We were sheltered, not even knew the facts of life properly. So it was real naive, whatever the word is. It was naiveness, of mine. But Baba's strength and courage took me to the forefront, and especially knowing that I was going to be part of his family, that was unique in itself. And I was aware of it, and I had to feel that I had to behave, not myself, I had to behave in the right way he would want me to, which of course I always did. And but I think that was my very, very, because he gave me some strength. I could feel a loving strength when he held my hand, put it in Adi's, and some sort of, I don't know what, power, whatever you call it, something went through my body when he put that hand in Adi's and blessed it. And I always remember that. So whatever the struggles I had later on, he was there for me, and that was my moment of Sahavas with him.
Thank you. Jim?
I can't help it when I hear these things that the first thought came into my mind is I'm sort of preparing for my Sahavas. I would say that I feel Baba's presence most when I'm doing the music. So that's why I do the music.
Thanks. And Jack?
I first heard Baba's name in 1965. I had a chance to see him physically. You know the story when Baba dropped the body, how I wanted to go to the Samadhi. And Baba had said that when he would drop the body, his lovers would feel his presence more. And he said that someday, somehow, you will have my darshan, you will have my meeting. I want to thank Franny who put that photo there, because as I was sitting here looking at that photograph, you see, all of you will have photographs of Baba here, but we don't until Franny had one there. And I realized, sitting up here, that whenever I think of Baba, I'm meeting him. Feeling this and understanding this at this moment makes this moment with you all the most significant experience I've had of MeherBaba. Because that's all I have to do is look at his photo and think of him. And I'm with him. And that's darshan. That's with Baba any time. So this moment to me is the most significant moment. I can't think of anything in the past. There may have been other things in the past. But right here with you, just thinking of you, thinking of Baba, thinking of your love for Baba, this is the most significant moment for me.
Thank you. And I hope all of you have felt Baba's Sahavas. I'd like to thank again Franey, Jack, Shireen, and Jim.